But I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
Well, as you know, I've been covering the case of my friend Lindsey Rinehart out in Idaho, in Boise. She is basically the face of medical marijuana activism for the state, and I feel a bit of responsibility because I kind of counseled and recruited her into the mission, so to speak. I mean, between her and Sarah Frank and Isaiah Valdez, I'm originally from Boise, Idaho, and I moved out 10 years ago because, well, you can. I didn't want to live under that kind of oppression, and I wasn't as brave as these people, or also I didn't, regardless, they're fighting, and I feel a responsibility to help them out any way I can. And the reaction to this case has been astounding for me because really in Idaho, marijuana reform is just not something you talk about. It's not something that's on the news. It's not something that's regularly a part of the letters to the editor. But this week, it's just been going nuts there in the state. And I wanted to recall some of this stuff for you. First of all, it was picked up in the Boise, Idaho Statesman. That's the daily newspaper, and the Boise Weekly, which is the alternative weekly paper. Both of the online versions of those have comment section. The Statesman's comment section has now generated over 200 comments on the story. I'll admit a dozen or so are mine. The story was also picked up in the Nampa, Idaho Press Tribune, which is Nampa's in Canyon County, which is to the west of Ada County, which is Boise, and a far more conservative area than even Boise. Picked it up. And as far as the worldwide media, this has gotten picked up by the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom, and Russia Today did a feature on it. Tom Hartman, as a matter of fact, picked it up on his program. There's also been TV news reporting on this from Spokane, Washington. KREM in Spokane and their newspaper, the Spokesman Review, covered the story. Also, the Tribune in Twin Falls, I believe is the name of the paper there, covered the story. And then as far as the local news media in Boise, the CBS affiliate KBOI ran a story, and the NBC affiliate KTVB ran the initial story, and they covered our press conference on Monday. And it's KTVB we're going to focus on in this little rant because, first of all, they're the number one station there and have been, God, since I was a kid. They got the most money. They're part of the same Belo Corporation that owns The King in Seattle, KGW out here in Portland. They got the Anchorage station. I mean, they're a major media conglomerate. Now, before we get to KTVB, though, I just want to let you know that Idaho, despite being, a very red state, listed usually in like the top 5 of red states, is actually quite supportive of medical marijuana, as is most of the country, and it's really not as red as you might think. The most recent 2011 Boise State University public policy poll found that, for the first time, more Idahoans identify as independents than as Republicans. And this is pretty shocking news from a state that generally has a 92 or 95% Republican legislature. Okay, more are identifying now as independent than Republican, and still it's about 20% that identify as Democrats. So it is quite a red state, but the shift is happening. This poll also asked, quote, "Do you support changing Idaho law to allow terminally and seriously ill patients to use and purchase marijuana for medical purposes?" End quote. 74% of all Idahoans agree with that people like Lindsey Rinehart should be left alone to treat her multiple sclerosis with cannabis. So, when you go and decide to raid and terrorize the state's most visible medical marijuana activists, contrary to the will of 3 out of 4 people, you need to mount a public relations offensive. The Boise Police Department followed up on our press conference by releasing a statement on their website to explain that, quote, "Detectives made the decision to contact Idaho health and welfare officials and place the children in imminent danger." Yes, that's the actual quote from their piece. I think they meant to take the children out of imminent danger. But give the Boise police spokeswoman Lynn Hightower a break. She can't proofread all her press reviews accurately. She only rose to the level of Boise, Idaho teleprompter reader on the last rated local station. So, cut her some slack. But most telling in this Boise Police Department release of information was in this little bit of cover your ass that's at the end. Typically, investigation on cases that remain under investigation is not released by the Boise Police Department. However, the suspects in this case have chosen to identify themselves, and the department believes it is in the public interest to clarify that evidence in a criminal investigation led officers to the Malad Street home. In the public interest, huh? Not in the interest of covering your ass. In the public interest. Because they chose to identify themselves and speak to the public because they wouldn't let you keep it a secret and do all this behind the closed doors of Child Protective Services. It's in the public interest to clarify that evidence led to this investigation, because if the public didn't think evidence from a criminal investigation caused officers to threaten the babysitter and invade the home, why, they might think the cops were targeting the most effective advocate for medical marijuana in the state for political reasons. Or they might question why a woman with multiple sclerosis who has admitted on local television numerous times that she uses cannabis to treat her condition only now suddenly became a danger to her kids. Or maybe they might wonder how it is that marijuana is such an imminent danger to the kids that the kid at the elementary school who ate it was never rushed to the hospital, 911 was never called, and it was a situation the school nurse could handle. And maybe people might ask, how is it that you find one kid who supposedly ate marijuana and then you immediately traced it to the home of the state's highest profile marijuana activist based on, quote, talking to witnesses, end quote, that were presumably age 11 and under? Since kids are never known to lie when they steal their own parents' or siblings' marijuana by pointing the finger at someone else. And who better to blame than the kid whose mom is on the news trying to legalize medical marijuana? That way, police don't have to investigate any other leads because they know finding pot at her home is like shooting fish in a barrel. And I wonder if the public didn't know that it was evidence that led to stealing the kids from the home and terrorizing them. If they didn't realize that, they might wonder if, quote, drugs located in an area that appeared to be commonly used by the children in the residence, end quote, might someday include the OxyContin in their medicine cabinet, the beer in their fridge, the tequila in their kitchen, the cigarettes in their purse, or the Viagra in the nightstand. Maybe they'll wonder if their kids can be taken into, quote, protective custody of the state until it can be determined if they are in a safe environment, end quote, if someday the kids swiped any of those drugs and took them to school. What if cops decide something they do without a second thought, like maybe keeping a loaded gun in the house, or cleaning products under the sink, or uncapped electrical outlets on the walls, or pesticides stored in the garage is presenting some sort of imminent danger? Apparently, the charm offensive from the Boise police is falling on deaf ears. The Facebook page for the Boise Police Department is plastered with condemnation over the Lindsey Rinehart case. The poll currently up on KTVB's website asking, should Idaho legalize marijuana? Not medical marijuana, mind you, is running 74% in favor of legalization. And perhaps they just can't understand the irony of busting a medical marijuana using multiple sclerosis patient as a danger to her children, while touting an unused prescription drug buyback program to keep pharmaceuticals away from the kids, promoting the Komen race for the cure for breast cancer as long as it's not cannabis, and trumpeting a sting that cited, not arrested or taken custody of their kids, but merely cited adults who bought kids alcohol for the prom. So now, KTVB has followed up on this story after being contacted by Patrick J. Kennedy of Smart, Colorado, better known here as Project SAM, or Smart Approaches to Marijuana, the brainchild of drug czar acolyte Kevin Sabet. Now, what does a former representative from Rhode Island fronting an anti-pot group in Colorado have to do with a story of a multiple sclerosis patient in Boise, Idaho? Well, marijuana. Duh. Just listen to the video here. This is Patrick J. Kennedy as presented in a video alongside Sarah Caldwell. And remember, Patrick J. Kennedy, Colorado, recreational pot. Idaho, Sarah Caldwell, medical marijuana.
The longest lasting vehicles.
Of course, there would be an ad to distract me before we get to all of this, so enjoy the Toyota Leadership Sales event at Steve's Hometown Toyota. Thank you, Steve, for sponsoring this little video.
A national push to regulate legalized marijuana hits the Northwest as a local woman campaigns for the opposite. A former congressman speaking out about the negative effects of recreational marijuana in Colorado. But a campaign here in Idaho is hoping to legalize the drug for medicinal use. News Channel 7's Karen Zakalak joins us now with both sides of this debate. Karen.
Maggie, it was 6 months ago that Colorado passed a law legalizing marijuana for recreational use. While some are now criticizing its effects, others say it's too early and more time will show more benefits for the states where it's legal and their citizens.
This isn't the rosy picture that the pro-marijuana people will like to paint. This is a very ugly picture.
Former Congressman Patrick Kennedy is clear in his criticism of the effects of legalized recreational marijuana in Colorado.
Increased access to kids, impact on their brain development, their education levels, and not the revenue windfall that was promised.
Now he's part of a campaign called Smart Colorado that's calling for more restrictions, while a Boise woman is calling for the opposite. Sarah Caldwell with Compassion Idaho wants medical marijuana to become legal in the gem state. She admits she used it herself in the past when she was sick and says its effects are far from harmful.
I didn't have any way to stop the pain, and it helped me. It helped me be a better mother.
A mother who just last week had her children taken away for 3 days. Caldwell says she was targeted because of her campaign.
We want to stand up for those people and give them the right to choose a safer medicine.
As for Caldwell's children, they have been returned to her. Police are still investigating the case that stems from a child swallowing marijuana at school. Maggie?
As for Compassionate Idaho, it launched a citizens petition several months ago. It hopes to get 55,000 signatures so the issue can go to voters on the November 2014 ballot. And that brings us to our Facebook question of the day. Do you think marijuana should be legalized for medicinal use here in Idaho? You can tell us what you think. That's a very popular question right now on our Today's Morning News Facebook page.
Now, if that's not interesting enough to you, let me give you a little look here at the video. If that little video of Patrick Kennedy looked a little familiar to you, because it certainly did to me, I want to point out the fact that this was Idaho's news channel, KTVB, bringing you coverage that was from a Fox Chicago piece that ran last Friday. Either that or Patrick J. Kennedy was sitting at the same desk in front of the same green screen. So that's what Idaho's News Channel 7 calls New This Morning on the day after they have to cover the press conference for Lindsey. I'll put that graphic up on the website. You can check out radicalruss.com. Interesting. Both sides of the marijuana debate. You know, making marijuana legal in Colorado versus taking a woman's kids away for multiple sclerosis medical use in Idaho. You know, it's the same debate. And it's new this morning, even though Patrick Kennedy said these things last Friday, not in respect or not in context having to do anything with the Idaho story. That's the kind of journalism you get out of KTVB, Idaho's News Channel 7. We'll talk more about that in an hour or two. We'll also take your calls at 971-533-7111. For Ryan the Red, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant